Hi there, everybody. This is Jeremy Siskind. I'm the author of Playing Solo Jazz Piano, now in its second edition, the Jazz Piano Fundamentals series, books 1 and 2. And I'm just reminding you that there's a new translation of Playing Solo Jazz Piano in Italian called Suonare il Piano Jazz Solo. And by the way, if you were not aware, there is a Spanish translation already out called Tocando Solo Jazz Piano. So we're working on, expanding this empire, this publishing empire of mine. But I'm not here all about self-promotion. I'm here today to talk about practicing improvising a second voice to a melody. So we're talking about two voice textures today. If you know much about me and my work, I love Counterpoint and the way that Counterpoint interacts with harmony in jazz and outside of it. And so if you've gotten the book Solo Jazz Piano in whatever language, there's a whole chapter about improvising different kind of contrapuntal arrangements. Now, I spend a lot of time talking about four voices, but before we start talking about four voices, it's really valuable to think about how two voices interact. So I thought I'd use the tune Someday My Prince Will Come, and first let me just demonstrate playing the melody in the right hand and then improvising a countermelody in the left hand. And so here I'm pretending like this is all I'm playing. There's not a band, there's not a bass player. Just here we go. Two voices trying to make a meaningful whole feeling statement. And it's fun as we can think about expanding from there. So you could hear that I went from 2 to 3 and then to 4 voices. But, as great as 4 voices is, you're probably not going to be able to play great in 4 voices unless you can get those 2 really good. So what are some elements to keep in mind as you're improvising with just 2 voices? Let me clear this slate here. So the first one's the easiest and the one that I'm most sure of, which is that when one voice is active, the other one is less active. Okay, so, in Someday My Prince Will Come, we do have quite a lot of long notes. I don't think I'm playing it correctly in 3/4, but I don't really care. So during those long notes, it could be. It's pretty boring. So as the right hand, as the melody holds those long notes, I'm going to make the other voice more active. right? And then as the right hand's playing, I can rest or hold with the left hand. So there's this kind of inverse relationship between how active the voices are. Second thing is maybe kind of obvious, which is aim for consonances. And by consonances, I really basically mean thirds and sixths. These are the intervals where we're going to hear harmony with only two voices. Anything else, fourths and fifths and octaves sound open. Seconds, sevenths are going to sound dissonant. So when I say thirds and sixths, I'm not talking about the chord tones. I'm not talking about the third of B flat major is D. What I'm talking about is that against this note, F, we have basically four options for notes that are thirds or sixths. We have a D natural, a D flat, an A natural, and an A flat. And that's what's going to create the feeling of harmony against these melody notes. So, starting with an F and a D, and it'll be easier to do it this way, that's going to both create a sense of consonance as well as imply that harmony of D major. Sorry, not D major, B flat major that we start the tune with. Let me put the tune back up here so you guys can reference it. The next melody note is B flat, and here a D would also make a consonant interval and define the chord, as would an F sharp. Now, this next measure is kind of interesting because this A is meant to be a tension against the chord, right? It's an E flat chord. A is definitely not a part. So it resolves to that G. So as we're thinking about what kind of consonants we want to make, I actually am thinking again about the note against the G. So for instance, a B flat makes a nice consonant sixth against that G. So I might play a dissonance here that resolves, and that defines the chord really nicely. Same thing at E flat makes a consonance against the G, a dissonance against the A, but that's kind of the point. On the G7, a B natural makes a consonance against that G, as is that sharp 5 at E flat that's marked in the chord. So you might say, well, that doesn't make a melody. And the point of improvising with two voices is that we do want to make a melody. So one great way to start is by kind of mapping these out and then connecting between these consonant notes. Here's another moment where the melody note is meant to be dissonant and then resolve. So I'm choosing the note E natural that is consonant against the C. Okay, so I'm going to be less fancy. So first let me just play with only the consonant notes, or the ones that kind of create a tension that resolves to a consonance. This is kind of a tricky moment here with this F on the C minor, because none of these consonant notes really define C minor at all. So here I'm actually just choosing a not consonant interval. Okay, and that C minor presents the same problem the second time. Okay, so just to review what I'm doing here, I'm choosing a note that forms either a third or a sixth against the melody, but also defines the chord. So B flat major, D7, sharp 5, tension, E flat, G7. Now here it's very tempting. I could go up to this C because that melody is leading there. G7, sharp 5, C7, okay. So now what I can do is I'm gonna connect between them. I'm gonna maybe delay. I'm gonna maybe skip into those consonant notes a little bit. And it's pretty interesting how a lot of times these consonant notes can form into little melodies, right? Okay, so that is definitely where I would get started, from a theory perspective. What else can you do? Of course you can include dissonances. You can include perfect intervals, right? Octaves, fifths. But I generally try to always have them resolve by a step into one of these consonant intervals. So let's take an example. If we go back to this first, someday my prince will come. If I want to start with a dissonant interval, I could start, right? See what I'm doing? I'm starting on an E flat. It doesn't define the chord. It's not a consonant interval, but it does resolve to that D7. It resolves to the D. That helps define that D7 as a consonant interval. Same thing I could try, right? G, not forming a consonant interval against the B flat major. Let's see, what could we do? We could use an open interval, a perfect interval. And then that resolves to a consonant interval on the G. Or how about this one? Right, the A flat creates dissonance, but it resolves to the perfect interval. Yeah. So you absolutely can use all kinds of intervals, but then you want to connect them to a consonant interval. So that's why I'd recommend starting with those consonant intervals. I'd even probably, if I were you, I would write out the melody on one line and the consonant intervals on another and start practicing with that. Okay. Now, you also want to make sure that your line has a shape, which includes some interesting leaps. And again, this kind of wants to work in inverse proportion with the melody. If the melody is leaping a lot, then the counterline should be more stepwise, and vice versa. If everything's leaping together, that's probably not good. So if we come back here, all right, we said we could do D and then F sharp, for example. So I could connect, and then I could leap after the F sharp. Right, and how did I do that leap? There were just two consonant intervals that work against that B flat, and so I'm leaping from one to the next. Or I can make a leap basically to set up that F sharp to lead into that F sharp. Right? And when I say set up, that's not a very technical term. So what I'm doing is I'm finding a note that's a lower neighbor, a chromatic neighbor. So I'm going to lead to this G sharp, And watch, I'm gonna leap into a dissonance that's a lower neighbor. I said the wrong thing. I'm gonna lead into a G for that next measure, but I'm gonna go into an F sharp. Right? It sounds like it's gonna be really awful for a split second. Dissonance, stepwise into a consonance. Okay? So we're adding leaps, and then you can decorate. And by decorate, I mean we're gonna add upper and lower neighbors, could be some chromatic notes, could be some diatonic notes. Don't forget about things like grace notes, arpeggios, sorry, let me try that again. Right, so this is still all based on that. But I'm just gonna lead in by an arpeggio, do a decoration, and then leap to the next one. And what did I just do there? I syncopated. So instead of coming in with each note right where you expect it, I offset them. Right, and that can create suspensions, which are fantastic. We love suspensions. They cause this feeling of tension and release. And then lastly, this video's been going on a long time, remember that contrary motion, going in opposite directions with your two voices, is the best kind of motion. Contrary motion is best. You'll be able to include more dissonances. You'll be able to hear the two voices most independently when you're using contrary motion. So, if we have a choice, if we're thinking about our consonant intervals, I'm going to go from D to F sharp in the lower voice for these first two chords. If we have a choice between going D up to F sharp or D down to F sharp, going from D down to F sharp is much better. Because now we really hear two distinct things moving in different directions. So I did this, which is less desirable than this. Right? It's directionality, moving from inside out rather than in the same direction. And then watch. Right? That's moving up. So we really want that to move down. Now, if everything always moved in contrary motion, that would probably get boring and it'd get very limiting. So I'm not saying 100% of the time move in contrary motion, but contrary motion is more desirable than what we call similar or parallel motion, where things move in the same direction. All right, guys, video's getting up to 20 minutes, so we're gonna call it a day there. If you liked this, you know what you're gonna love? Playing solo jazz piano. I think it's chapter 18 is all about contrary motion. It's all about contrapuntal approach to improvisation. It is chapter 18 in here. And so if you enjoyed this video and you watched to the end, J.S. Bach is going to be our word of the day. Maybe J.S. stands for Jeremy Siskind. I don't know. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.